Phew! I am so glad to see you this morning because when I first tried to go live, I got this message from YouTube, live streaming not available right now, and the spinning circle of doom. So, welcome. So glad you're here. If this ever happens again, do know that I will post something eventually, and I will be doing my practice, so you can do it too. All right. Today, well, I had a plan for today, and if you looked at the comment or the summary below earlier, you might have seen that I was going to talk about the Gita, and especially why does Arjuna have to fight this war against his relatives in the Bhagavad Gita. Before that happens, though, I realized something. I was teaching a wonderful group of teacher trainees last night from the YogaOAK program out in Portland. Hello to all the teachers and students, and Lisa and Rachel. It was quite an honor, and it was my job to introduce this wonderful, eager group of learners to the Bhagavad Gita. And I know how intimidating that can be because when I first read the Bhagavad Gita, it's like, no, why am I reading this? And now I love it. And that was because of a certain specific teacher who really gave me the context of what was going on. So I realized that before we go into why Arjuna has to fight this war, that I need to give you some context, especially because some of the words that Western translators use, and even I've had to default to, are not really accurate. I beg your pardon, are not really accurate. And this can be due to fault in the English language, which isn't as nuanced in some topics as others. For example, the word love. In Greek, you have so many words for love, and they describe specific kinds. And in English, we just have love. I love you. And similarly, one of the things to remember with the Bhagavad Gita is it's often presented as a battle of good versus evil. But evil to us in the West means something different than the original Sanskrit term and context. So for many of us, evil has, we envision somebody with horns and sneering and really enjoying causing distress in the world. That's evil. But in the Gita, evil is something different. Good is what leads you toward your true self, and evil is what leads you away from your true self. And evil does not have to be punished by anyone or anything outside, because simply by not being true to yourself, you're already punishing yourself. So there's this dichotomy. It kind of resonates with me because I was asked for a podcast a few years ago after a shooting in Colorado. We were talking about the Gita, and then the person asked, how can we draw upon the Gita or yoga to deal with all these shootings that are going on by these evil people? And I was like, well, one thing we have to remember is that in these people's minds, they're not evil. Like, they're not necessarily going out and saying, I'm doing this because I want to wreak pure evil in the world. I am a devil, I am a demon, and this is my joy, right? Often these people are suffering, and this is the best they can do. This is their way of communication or trying to feel empowered, and it's not a positive way, but that's generally the motivation. Think of the things you've done when you look back in your past and go, yeah, that was not cool. Were you doing it because you're like, I want to wreak havoc on the world. I want to make the world a miserable place. I want to make myself and others miserable because I am evil. I am evil. Or were you just doing the best you could at the time? So this is something to remember in the Gita, because I'll be discussing this idea of the battle of good versus evil. And it's very important that we understand these basic terms. I'll talk about another term tomorrow. Actually, understanding each other's terminology is part of the Gita's idea of reducing conflict, actually. Because if you're having an argument with somebody you care about, you have to be clear that you're arguing about the same thing. So let's say I'm arguing with my partner about intimacy. and I'm saying there's not enough intimacy in our relationship, for example, and I'm thinking physical intimacy. And when my partner hears intimacy, they think emotional intimacy. And then we can't understand why there's this disagreement. We have to meet and understand the nuances of exactly where we're coming from. So think about this today. When we get to the meditation, one of two things you can think about where you are creating evil in your life. That is where you are denying your true self and your ability to connect to it and how it's causing you suffering. You can also think of maybe a conflict that you're involved in with someone now. And could it simply be due to a misunderstanding or certain assumptions? Because if you can address that, and if we can learn to address that in the world at large, just think of how much suffering, how much war will be reduced. Woo. All righty. Yay. I'm able to have everything open today and be outside. We will do our pose and then our meditation. Doot, doot. Here we go. It's icy out. So, oh, yes, it is. So, there we go. Let's switch sides. Switch. And good. Settling in for our meditation of about 5 minutes. coming back. Today's practice is dedicated to those folks at YogaOAK, the students and the teachers. It's awesome working with you. It's awesome working with all of you. And I'll see you tomorrow. And by tomorrow, I mean in 23 hours and 45 minutes. Until then, be a force for fighting evil.